Back when I was doing my Rocket deck playlist, I did a deck called Spooky Porter, in which you use Dark Alakazam's Teleport Blast to deal damage, retreat to the bench, and put out a Haunter that had the Transparency ability so that it only took damage half the time. So if you haven't checked out that video, go ahead and pop over and do that. But the idea for that deck came from an archetype from the Rocket On era, and that was Baby Porter, in which you did the same thing, but with baby Pokemon who had that inherent effect on them that they only took damage half of the time. So here's the Baby Porter deck. So of course the deck is centered around Dark Alakazam, and Neo really opened up a lot of opportunities for this card. Mainly, that Teleport Blast works really well with all sorts of baby Pokemon. So no matter what particular attacks you're wanting or what kinds of effects, you could substitute in a Magmi or a Pichu or a Cleffa depending on what direction you wanted to take the deck in. You also had the addition of Darkness Energy, which could be used as that third energy in Teleport Blast, and because Alakazam has Dark in its name, you're not going to get any of the negative effects, but Teleport Blast is going to start dealing 40 damage instead of 30, which can be a really big help to stack up to some of these high HP cards that Neo brought along, such as Meganium and Feraligatr. And using Dark Alakazam always faced two huge weaknesses. One was Gust of Wind, and in this case Double Gust, which means that it wasn't safe on the bench after it used Teleport Blast. That low HP means that it can just be pulled out and attacked and knocked out pretty easily. However, now you had Focus Band, which meant that even if it did get pulled out, it's not going to be a guarantee KO for your opponent. You still had that chance to survive thanks to Focus Band. And because decks were so reliant on trainers and were so trainer heavy at the time, having very few evolution lines in the deck, this deck could really take advantage of Dark Vileplume, which could both work off of the Boss's Way search engine. That way you can get these evolution cards out faster and outspeed your opponent in evolving, but also it lets you play all of your trainers up front just to get these Pokemon set up, and then the rest of the game you won't need trainers anyway, since your Teleport Blasts are going to be moving your Pokemon back and forth. So you can kind of screw your opponent over by utilizing Dark Vileplume's ability late game. So those are the basic mechanics that you're going to be relying on for this deck. So let's get into the actual structure of the deck and kind of this bare bones build of Baby Porter. So starting off with a full playset of Abra. Like a typical Abra card, not very high on the HP, but because Rocket On is such a slow format, you're not going to have to worry about attacks that early on. Dark Kadabra is a great utility card for this deck. You can use that Matter Exchange Pokemon power to kind of get the cards you need a lot faster. You can mill through your deck a little bit and get those Boss's Way or those Professor Elms really early on before you get your trainer blocks set up. And Dark Alakazam, of course, is going to be your only attacker with Teleport Blast. 30 damage isn't a whole lot, but doing it repeatedly without taking very much damage yourself can really stack up against your opponent. And Cleffa is going to be the baby that you pour into the most. That Eek attack is extremely useful across all decks. That's why it was used in 100% of decks this time. And my other baby that I choose to pour it into is Elekid. Playful Punch is really great for if you find yourself in a situation that's hard to get out of. If you don't have your setup yet and you need to start dealing a little bit of damage, Elekid is great for that. And a full playset of Oddish. I'll be running the same kind of 4-4-3 with Vileplume as I do with Alakazam. A big part of this is just getting that Vileplume out as fast as possible. You're only really going to need one, and once that's set up, you're not going to need to replace them very much. But Dark Gloom is another great utility card, and that you can use Pollen Stench as another great way to stall out your opponent a little bit and put them in a hard spot while you're racking up blasts on them. And pretty much it's not going to matter if you accidentally put a special condition on your active, because you're probably going to be evolving soon anyway. And Dark Vileplume is going to be your bench sitter just to stay there and block trainers. By the time you get Dark Vileplume out, you'll want to have focus bands on all of your Dark Alakazams that you have set up. You can even put them on your baby Pokemon. That way you have a much greater chance of them surviving long enough for you to get more and more Teleport Blasts off. The Boss's Way is another card that you're going to be using Matter Exchange for, just to get it really fast, to fill your hand up with Dark Kadabras, Alakazams, Glooms, Vileplumes. 4 copies of this card will get you everything you need very early on in the game. You can probably even Professor Elm into at least one boss's way. That way, you play one trainer and you're getting a ton of cards straight out of your deck with it. Great synergy with Matter Exchange. Warp Point and Double Gust. Like I say in all these videos, they're kind of interchangeable for this format depending on your particular playstyle or the situation. It's really up to if you want to give your opponent the ability to switch into what they want or what you want. So depending on the situation, you can really interchange these cards depending on your particular playstyle. And Nightly Garbage Run, just to make sure you're not decking yourself out. Because this deck does use a lot of draw and search cards very early on in the game, you can dwindle your deck if the game goes on for a really long time, which, because Teleport Blast only deals 30 damage, you're really racking up damage over time, so it can make games very long. For the special energy in this deck, I went with full heal energy, mostly to just kind of circumvent special conditions that are a little bit prevalent at the time. But Teleport Blast has that third energy card that you can, or the third energy for the attack that you can kind of replace with any kind of energy. So for the special energy, I kind of went with full heal to cover those bases. And again, this is a very bare bones kind of structure for this deck. So there's a lot of things you can move around, and we'll talk about that now. You do have a lot of leeway in this deck in what baby Pokemon you want to choose. However, using Magby or Pichu, even though they're great cards, can be really detrimental to this deck in particular. Shutting down Poke Powers could help you with Magby. That way you can actually play trainers for a turn, but it also lets your opponent do so. But you can also play around with the number of Cleffa and Elekid that you want to include in the deck, depending on if you prioritize getting cards in your hand or dealing damage very early game. And speaking of dealing more damage, Dark Energy is another great addition to this card. I didn't have room for it to really put in this bare bones construct that I did, but I really would suggest putting Dark Energy in over the full heal energy. It's just during playtesting I found that the biggest roadblock to this deck is if Dark Alakazam got a special condition on it, and that stopped it from using Teleport Blast consistently every turn. That really hurt the deck. But dealing that extra 10 damage every turn, making Teleport Blast more of a threat so that you're dealing 40 instead of 30. But then also you do face the problem of, do I start to run Energy Charge as well? That way I can kind of recycle those. Speaking of recycling, Recycle Energy is another great option for that third energy cost for Teleport Blast attack. With Recycle Energy, you can make sure that you're not going to run out of energy, that they're not all going to get discarded, and then you end up not being able to attack. So Recycle Energy helps put that colorless energy back in your hand every turn. And because a huge focus of this deck is shutting down the play of trainers, you can opt to remove some trainers from this deck to add more baby Pokemon in, or just some trainer substitutions to where you're not going to need them late game. That's all going to be upfront draw power. Maybe add in a couple of Professor Elms in order to take out Double Gust, for example. And the teleporting doesn't have to be with just babies. Another fantastic stall card is a Mew promo that I just call Mew on a Rock promo because there's so many Mews. But anyway, this card's great for stalling, especially late game. If you don't want to rely on the coin flip for babies, this card just has a 100% of the time stop attacks from evolved Pokemon. So if you're playing something like a Steelix or Typhlosion or Feraligatr, that late in the game, your opponent's probably going to have only evolved Pokemon on their bench and as they're active. So this Mew can completely disrail those kinds of decks. Even that Psyshock attack is a great stall move just to keep your opponent from really attacking with anything. Is even if they do get a basic out that can put some damage on Mew, if you're able to Psyshock first before they can deal that full 40 damage, you can completely take control of the game. This deck is so versatile with the ways it can be played. You can add in so many different types of cards, rearrange the numbers of different cards. That way you can focus on different strategies and play styles. I've even seen potpourri versions of this deck where there's barely any trainers at all, and there's all kinds of different types of cards just for weakness coverage. because Dark Alakazam isn't the only teleporting type card we have in this format. So look forward to the Baby Spinner deck coming soon as well. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for commenting. Let me know what decks you want to see, and I'll get them put up. Thanks.